It's very warm today. My fan just died. Yeah. I'm trying to get through the video. But with that said and done, guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fine and dandy day. Today, we're going to do something a bit fun, a bit of a creative exercise, if you will, and you're more than welcome to join along with me as we go through it. Throughout the history of filmmaking, people have often made the mistake of assuming that audio and video are like 50-50 in terms of importance, for how important they are for the final project. When in actual fact, it's more like 70-30 or 80-20 on the audio side. Audio is far more important than video when it comes to making content or films, short films, all that stuff. And I'll give you an example that proves this. You can actually go ahead and watch something that's got really bad video quality. It's not the greatest in the world, but it has really good audio, and you can sit through it and be thoroughly okay with watching that video. Whereas on the other hand, if you watch something that's got really good video quality, but the audio is, you know, like a garbage tin can and it's trash, you're not going to watch it for very long. And with being a video editor over the last 12 years or so, I've come to realize how important audio is for making a good story. Things like music and sound design are just a few of the things that you can do to a video to improve the story and elevate it to a whole new level. So today I want to talk about my process for editing music and creating sound design within my videos, and how I go about creating a sound bed and an atmosphere using sound effects, and how I find music for all of my videos, and a few pro tips for mixing and mastering that music that you might not know about. And finally, layering it all together to create and invoke a feeling and to help communicate and express your story in a much better way. So let's start off by taking a quick look at the project that we're going to be doing here, the creative brief, if you will, the mission for this video. I have here the opening sketch, cinematic, I think you could say, for the video for the Final Cut Pro 10 Secrets thing that I did a while back. If you haven't seen this video, by the way, go check it out. I've left a link to it down below in the description or up here as well. Highly recommend it. Some really cool stuff in there. But in this entire video, we have no sound, no music. It's just the visuals. In fact, in the original video, I did exactly the same thing we're doing here. I replaced all of the main camera sound with sound effects and Foley and royalty-free music that I found online. And speaking of royalty-free music and sound effects, that leads us straight into the sponsor of this video, and that is Epidemic Sound. Epidemic Sound are the reasons why we're able to do this kind of stuff today, and I've been using them for years. They have some really incredible stuff. If you guys are looking for royalty-free music for your YouTube videos like I am right here, or even your Twitch live streams, your Facebook or Instagram, or even your own podcast, you name it, they've got it. And with a huge collection of royalty-free sound effects and music, your content is safe from copyright strikes and takedowns, even if you cancel your plan after your trial period is over. And speaking of trial period, if you guys want to give it a go and try it out for yourself and use some music in your YouTube videos, then go ahead and use the link down below to sign up for the personal plan and start your free 1-month trial today. And maybe you can follow along with me as we go ahead and check out Epidemic Sound, find some music and sound effects for this video, and just show you guys how easy it is to find exactly what you're looking for. And along with that, I'm going to show you guys some really advanced features that I think you guys are going to love. So without further ado, let's dive in. So the first thing I like to do is break down the project or the video into its core main visual components. So what exactly am I going to need, and what exactly do I need to go out and look for to make the sound design for this video work? So looking back over this, you can kind of see we have some nice greenery here, some foresty locations. You have me kind of walking down this mountain trail with some dirt and some grass. We also have some clothes movement as well, because, you know, you can probably hear my jeans and my clothing kind of moving around here. So let's jump on over to Epidemic Sound and start finding what we're looking for. And one pro tip here for those of you that got Stream Decks or maybe touch portal devices, I have a little button here that's assigned to take me straight to Epidemic Sound. If I push this button, boom, I'm right here on the main page. I can start looking for things that I want to use in my videos, and I can start browsing through all the music and sound effects right away. Anyway, moving on from that, let's go ahead and start looking for some sound effects. And the first thing I want to do is click up here and go to the sound effects page on Epidemic Sound. As you can see, there's so many genres you can go through, so many kind of categories, and there's over 90,000 sound effects on this website on Epidemic Sound. So if these guys don't have it, then we're out of luck pretty much, but I'm sure they will. I'm sure they have what we're looking for, but what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and start searching for the things that I want to look for by clicking on the little search button right here. When we click on that, we get taken to a nice search page. I want to start looking at things like forest sound effects, like English countryside, maybe. So maybe that's what we search for. Maybe like English countryside. Oh, actually, there's one here called English forest. Let's listen to that real quick. That could work. I just kind of listen to kind of what it sounds like, but this could really work. Let's download this and let's see if we can find another one. One little tip, by the way, when it comes to generating an atmosphere or creating sound design in a video is don't be afraid to use more than one sound effect, even if they sound very much the same or completely different. You want to create layers. You want to create depth in your video, and using different layers of sound creates that level of depth and detail. You want to have a variety and layer things on top of each other. So what we're going to do is going to use these sound effects that we just downloaded, bring them into Final Cut Pro, and start layering them in and creating our sound bed. So I have the sound effects here inside of my Final Cut Pro library. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start playing them back and start layering them into my project here and finding the points that I kind of want to emphasize areas and bring layers down. So we're going to start playing things back. Okay, that's a pretty good one. Okay, so we're going to start off by bringing this in roughly just before the first shot appears. I want the audio to create a transition for me. I want the audience to hear where we are before they see where we are. I'm going to press Q on the timeline right here, and I'm going to bring down the volume just a little bit to around, we'll do negative 20 dB. I'm going to pull on this little crossfade handle right here to create a crossfade. But what we're going to do is start off right here. Is actually going to make this part of the sound effect here a lot louder. Because we're above the environment here, I want to create a little bit more emphasis on where we are. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to click and create two keyframes. I'm going to bring down the volume here to about negative 30. And if you play this back, we're above everything. And then we cut down to where the environment is not the main subject anymore. It's our person on screen. So that's going to be our kind of transition into much more of a focused narrative. So I'm going to just tweak the pacing on these keyframes just a little bit. Play it back. You get transition there in the audio that kind of gives a clue to the audience that we are going to be cutting very soon, so it doesn't make the edit very jarring at all. And then we're going to do is adding another sound effect as well, and some more forest sounds here. We're going to bring these in maybe as it cuts here with some different birds going on. We've got some different textures going on with the sound. The next thing I want to do is start adding in all the kind of little details now, the little sound effects for the footsteps, for the clothing as well, kind of find things for that, along with any kind of dirt or, you know, adding extra detail for my stick kind of sticks down into the ground here. I want to add some emphasis on that. So what I'm going to do is go back to Epidemic Sound and have a look for things that kind of match what we're looking for. So maybe we could look for something a little bit more like leaves, maybe. So it's just for leaves. And scroll down a little bit. Footsteps in leaves. Listen to this one. A bit too heavy. But what I can do, a little feature here, if I click on Find Similar right here, I can find sound effects that are similar to the one that I've just played. So I can click on this, and I can find footstep leaves 3 or sound effects that are similar to that footstep sound that I can play and kind of get much more of a narrow point of view for my project. This one sounds pretty good. And download that one. What's this tennis shoes one here? Download as many of these as you can, or as many as you want, and by using them and layering them and kind of stacking them on top of each other, you create a much more diverse layer of sound that you can have in your video. So now I've found all the sound effects that I'm pretty happy with for the project. I have them here inside of Final Cut Pro. What I'm going to do is just play back a few of them and just kind of find which ones work best for the speed and for the movement that I'm walking at. So I'm going to click on this one first of all. I'm going to press Q and bring it into the timeline. What I want to do is solo this layer. I'm going to press Option S on the keyboard to solo the sound for just the footsteps, so I can only hear that. Okay, you can see my footsteps don't quite line up, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually blade this and move this around a little bit. You can absolutely do this technique with sound effects and sound design, where you cut up a particular sound and use it and kind of recreate and reshape and remold it to match your project. The audience won't exactly tell where something finishes and where something starts, so play around with the position, cut things up and move things around to better suit the nature of what's going off on screen. So I've gone to the end here and I've added in all those little steps and sound effects for the leaves. So if we play this back, you'll see what it sounds like. And the next step I want to do is add in my clothing to this. The kind of the rustles of my clothing, of my jeans. So I found one I quite like right here. I'm going to press Q and connect this in, and I'm going to press Option S twice to solo the clothing layer. So it's just that on its own. So I'm going to blade it right there and end that clip right there. I'm going to have a crossfade at the end here. There's a few more clothing sounds to kind of add a little bit of variety to that. Some of these kind of larger sound effects here. So when I step, it creates a little bit more variety in the clothing sounds. So maybe like here. One little trick as well, if you're trying to line things up well when it comes to sound design, what you can do is you can slow the clip down. So press Command R on the keyboard, I bring up the retime editor here. I can actually drag out the sound of it just a little bit, and not by too much. You don't want to create distortion with the sound, but you want to create just a little bit more length when it comes to, you know, adding variety to that sound. If I play it back now, you can see how it sounds like. Maybe opposite the tone just a little bit more. Maybe extend this clip out just a little bit more as well. And if you play it all back, you probably won't hear it all that much, but it adds that level of detail, adds that level of depth to the overall scene. And now, if you play this all back, this is what it sounds like. Sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? And it's a real just insight into how much of an impact good Foley and sound design will have on a sequence like that, especially one without any audio. Sound really has so much more detail and so much more depth than video has, so don't be afraid to layer and just stack sound effects on top of each other to create a real variety and a real complexity within your sound. It depends on the project for sure, but getting into that habit of thinking about what your project's going to sound like and how you want your project to make somebody feel is a great way to communicate your story. And another thing that can communicate a good story is good music. So let's jump back on over to Epidemic Sound and try and find the track that we want to use for this video. Now, Epidemic Sound has over 35,000 professionally produced music tracks on their website, and that is quite a lot to go through. So they've broken it down into genres, moods, and albums. And you can go through all of these different tabs and find the music you want to use this way. But I much prefer going up here to the search bar and typing in something that I want to look for, something that kind of matches the tone for the story that I want to tell. So for this particular project, I want to kind of emphasize that journey aspect, something like Lord of the Ringsy, if you know what I mean. Kind of our hero is going on a quest to find some long lost hidden secret, and so I want music to complement that. So maybe something more epic, something cinematic. So maybe start searching for things that are epic and have a look and see what comes up. And one of the great things about Epidemic is you can actually go through and you can isolate and kind of refine your search based on those different genres as well. You have your mood, genres, vocals, length, and beats per minute. But if you go down to the moods right here, I'm actually going to try and see if I can find something that's got a little bit of a chasing theme to it. I want to create momentum as the track goes on. So I'm going to just isolate that by clicking on this tag called Chasing. And right here is the music track that I used in the final video. If I play just a little bit of it back, you'll hear what I'm talking about. Sounds pretty epic, doesn't it? What I'm going to do is actually going to download this track right now and then use it in our project. I'm going to click on the download button right here. Now you can do one of two things. You can download the full mix, which downloads the final audio track, the music track that you're going to be using, or you can do a thing which is called download all stems, and this is what we're going to be doing. For those that don't know what stems are, think of stems as like the individual components or the layers that go into the final mix of the music track. Things like drums, bass, instruments, melody, vocals, all of those different layers that go into the final mix. You can download the stems and modify and tweak individual layers to create a different sound entirely. So I'm going to download the stems and show you guys how you can use them in Final Cut Pro in a really, really unique way. So here I have all the stems and I've thrown them into Final Cut Pro. And you can see here, we also have the final music track as well, but you also have things like bass, drums, instruments, melody, all of those individual components that go into making the final mix and master of the final music track. And a role, for those of you that are asking, is essentially a metadata tag that Final Cut Pro gives to a music track or a audio file that tells Final Cut Pro what it is and what it should do with it. So things like music, dialogue, and sound effects are all roles. And if I right click on one of these audio files and go to assign audio roles and then click on edit roles, you can create your own. And under the music role here, I've added sub roles like bass, drums, instruments, and melody, just like our stem names right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the stems bass, go to audio roles, and I'm going to click on bass. Do the same thing for drums, instruments, and melody as well. And then once you've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the individual stems, right click and choose new compound clip. And I'm going to give this a name. I'd like to call this called music mix, like that, and click OK. And I have this compound clip right here that I can double click and open up in the timeline. And then all I'm going to do is simply stack these layers or these music tracks on top of one another like that. And then go back to my main timeline by clicking on the back arrow right here. And then what I can do, as I click and drag, I can put this music track into my timeline like this. And then what I can do is then I can click on the index button right here. And under roles, underneath music, what I can click on here is these little sub-roll, expand or collapse sub-rolls in the timeline index. If I click on that, you may notice now we have bass, drums, instruments, and melody all there in our timeline that we can now go ahead and edit and tweak to get a mix and master just like we want for our final video. And then what you can do is actually independently edit all of these individual sub-tracks. You can go in and adjust the volume. You can range over a section and press a V to disable it. You can add keyframes to create different points of tension or to create a crescendo in your music and create rises and so on. There's so much control with this technique to create your own music mix. And there we go. There is the full mix and mastered video with the music and how I would do it for this video. If you guys want to check out the final result, go ahead and see the final video down below in the description, or click up here and go ahead and watch some useful tips in there for Final Cut Pro users as well. I highly recommend it. And with that, I hope you guys found this video helpful and it gave you some better insight into creating sound design and editing music for your videos. If it did, let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, take care.